Hey guys, Ramadan Reaper here. So I just got done watching Anatomy of a Fall. Obviously, I've been trying to work my way through as many of this year's Oscar nominees as I can before the ceremony takes place. Last week I watched Maestro, and obviously there's several that I had already watched last year, whether it be in the cinema or on streaming, and obviously this is the latest of that. And obviously I'd been hearing nothing but brilliant things about it, tons of, rave reviews, acclaim. Obviously, this is, in service of a film which has been nominated for 5 Oscars, including Best Picture. But even then, it had already been showered with accolades. Most notably, it won Palme d'Or at last year's Cannes Film Festival. So yeah, I was expecting really good things from this, but is this a brilliantly made courtroom drama? Let's find out. So the film follows Sandra Voiter, a writer who lives in a house in the mountains with her husband Samuel, their blind son Daniel, as well as the family dog Snoop. One day, Samuel mysteriously falls to his death from the attic of the family house, with Daniel being the sole witness. An investigation around the death is conducted, and soon Sandra is accused of potentially murdering her husband. And so, a year later, the case is taken to court where Sandra must testify and assert her innocence in an incredibly messy and complicated situation. So, obviously, I'd been hearing tons of brilliant things about this, and obviously, this is nominated for several Oscars as a Best Picture nominee, so yeah, I was expecting great things from this, and to be honest, yeah, this was fantastic. I absolutely loved this film. Definitely do check it out if you haven't already. It's well worth your time, and to be honest, I hope this does well in the categories it's been nominated in. I mean, for one, this is an incredibly compelling story. The actual case itself is, got so many layers and nuances to it that it's, full of twists and not necessarily twists and turns, but rather there's enough like evidence and misinformation and mistruth that are argued and counter argued so much that, there's always something new to keep you engaged. It is an incredibly gripping and compellingly told story. And obviously, this incredibly complicated and messy case. Obviously, this isn't a straightforward murder mystery because, well, we don't even know if the case being investigated is even a murder. But rather, this is an incredibly complicated look at a complicated case. And obviously, this is used as a wonderful springboard for some very interesting thematic explorations. Obviously, this is very much about grief and despair, but also it's an exploration of the idea that, well, you can never really truly know what is coming. And an idea that I sort of picked up on as a through line that I sort of picked up on was the idea that the truth is messy. Like obviously, you've got the case itself, which there's evidence and misinformation, which is argued and counter argued in the courthouse. You've also got the sort of the immediate ramifications of the incident on the family life, as the sole witness and the wife are left, incredibly raw from it. But also, there's a sort of idea that of the messy implications of the media discussion around the case, and in a way, there's sort of a level of critique around how the media discusses and reacts to these high-profile court cases. There's some very interesting stuff at play here, and it's all sold by some incredibly, restrained filmmaking, like an impressive level of restraint to the filmmaking here from director Justine Triet. Like obviously there's no sort of show-offy filmmaking razzle dazzle, and that works really well for the story at hand. But that's not to say there isn't any creative filmmaking on display here, because that would be untrue. There are some very well done sequences, like there's some use of handheld cam in some scenes, and there's a very well done scene wherein Sandra's lawyer and the court's prosecutor argue while about evidence that Daniel has presented while testifying, with the camera panning between the two men arguing, all the while never leaving Daniel's perspective. It's incredibly impressive. I mean, there's other stuff I could talk about here as well, like a sequence of an audio recording of an argument between Sandra and Samuel that leads into a flashback of said argument, or even the film's use of language. Like the family life scenes are spoken in English, but the actual formalities of the courthouse are in French. And even like the investigation itself is in French. So the way it sort of uses language to explore the contrast in like interactions at different levels of professionality is very interesting. And the way the film's soundtrack as well works really well with the story. There are some scenes which are soundtracked by Daniel's piano playing, and yeah, it works really well for the story at hand. It's a very interesting semi-recurring thing. But really, where would this be without some absolutely fantastic performances? Obviously, we have Sandra Hüller as Sandra, and yeah, she is fantastic with this incredibly just raw emotional intensity. She is a magnetic screen presence. We also have Milo Macador Granier as Daniel, incredibly like raw, overcome with trauma, and a very interesting exploration of a loss of childhood innocence. He's great. We also have other great performances here, including Samuel Tay as Samuel in some scenes. Uh, his standout scene, obviously, being the argument. Fantastic stuff. We also have Swan Grano as Vincent Renzi, Sandra's lawyer. He's great. There's some funny scenes he shares with Sandra, but also he's, an incredibly professional man as well. And, he is, incredibly effective in the court. He's great. We also have Jenny Beth as Marge, a woman assigned by the court to sort of watch over Daniel and, ensure that the testimony he gives is, not manipulated or warped in any way. And she's great. She brings a sort of like natural warmth to her scenes. But obviously the standout performance is from canine actor Messi as Snoop. Yeah, this is obviously this won Palme Dog at the Cannes Film Festival, and yeah, well deserved. Messi's performance, steals the show. He's fantastic, as you would expect from a dog. Now, the film itself is very well paced and incredibly engaging throughout. Obviously, some scenes I feel like could have maybe been a bit tighter, but it's never slow. It never feels like it's dragging out at any point. The pacing feels just right, which is incredibly impressive given the film's 2.5 hour runtime. And it all builds to a quietly devastating ending, which feels like the sort of perfect culmination of the idea that I mentioned earlier, that the truth is messy. Because obviously, in a much more commercial film, the ending, then the truth that come out would be obviously, be presented much more clean, much more clearly. with sort of no wiggle room in terms of ambiguity. But here, yes, the truth comes out and justice is delivered, but it's not as simple or happy as that. And it feels perfectly in keeping with the tone and themes of the film. This is just a fantastic film overall. Definitely do watch it if you haven't checked it out yet. It's well worth your time. Fantastic film. And yeah, I hope this wins at least one Oscar. Overall, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. So yeah, let me know down in the comments, how have you seen Anatomy of a Fall? What did you think of it? What is your take on the way the film presents its central case, and would you like to see it win an Oscar or two? Let me know all that down in the comments. Don't forget the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Don't forget the subscribe button if you're new, and don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload.